In this section, we'll try and answer your questions about what it's like to go to Download Festival, things that we recommend doing, and things to avoid. This week, crowd etiquette. When your band comes on, you'll be desperate to get a good view and to enjoy yourself as much as possible. But how do you do that when thousands of people around you are trying to do the same thing? So getting to the front of the crowd to see your favourite band can be tricky, because if there's other people around with the same idea, they're all going to be pushing and shoving. It'll be like a Christmas Eve in the shopping centre, won't it?
Yeah, so I mean, the only time I've ever been to the front for a headliner was Def Leppard. And,
no way.
Yeah, and the only reason I can think of that I managed to get to the front was because it is definitely a different sort of crowd. Obviously, getting to the front of Slipknot, it was impossible. I think Dave managed to get as close as he could, but that wasn't like close. But Def Leppard, we were actually quite close to the barrier, and I've got some brilliant pictures and some footage of us actually being as close as we were.
Wow.
But for Slipknot, it was almost an impossibility to do so because so many people wanted to get to the front. Obviously, two completely different sounding bands.
Different crowds.
Definitely an age difference.
Dave, you like being up the front, don't you?
Yeah. Let me start again. Yeah, well, I'm just remembering what Lee just said, and I remember, I think it was Tool, well, not last year, the year before.
Tool up the front.
Yeah. Neil, stop it.
I got there fairly early because I wanted to get a good place. I was sort of, I don't know, maybe 20 rows back or something like that. And as it got closer to the start of the show, obviously everyone was getting more and more tight and like pushing forward slightly. And then I remember someone came up behind me and was like, "Oh, I just want to get in front of you." And I was like, "Yeah, so you're like 100,000 other people."
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
The trick is to like plan ahead. That's why, like, I know Lee will agree with me on this. Like when they first announced the lineup, it's good to tick off the bands you want to see and cross off the bands you don't want to see, and then you have a good idea of like a schedule for yourself. And then a bit nearer to the time when they release the stage times, you can go on Clash Finder and check that out. And it's good ideas to print it out and then just have the bit of paper in your pocket when you're walking around the festival and be like, "Oh, this band I want to see are coming on in like an hour's time, but there's a band I want to see you clash with them." So then you might be like, "Oh, I'll watch a couple of songs of theirs and then give myself enough time to go to the other band or whatever."
Because that's the thing, at a festival, you've got people who are at the main stage all day and they won't move and they'll just sit there and watch whatever entertainment is provided for them. Then you've got people like you who will actively seek out bands that they want to go and watch and will be crowd hopping.
I like to get my money's worth, and like, there are definitely some bands that play that I don't like. And then there are some bands there that I like, love. So it's good to, it's good to do some research beforehand. And if it's a band you've never heard of, just go on Spotify or YouTube and listen to a couple of songs. I mean, you could be like, "Oh, actually, I might check them out."
So for a lot of performances, you'll just have to put up with whatever view you've got that you manage to get, because there's already going to be a crowd there for a lot of it, isn't there? When you turn up to see your band.
Yeah. You just have to, not normally, especially for the main stage, if you can get there before the previous band finish, as soon as that band finish, like, it does get quite empty, and you can actually sort of weave your way closer if you want to, because most people would just kind of stay where they are. If they're there all day, they'll pick a spot and they'll just stay there. And obviously they might get kind of pushed around a bit when the band's playing, but generally they won't try and go any further if they're just there like to see, you know, general bands, if there's no one they particularly want to see like desperately.
Lee, you're into crowd surfing, aren't you? And I can't think of anything more frightening, to be honest, than decide. I mean, how do you even initiate that? How do you get yourself up above people to crowd surf? How do you begin something like that?
I don't initiate it. I wait until you can start seeing other people going for it. And I think it was when I saw Trivium in 2019. There was one bloke who was just literally saying, yeah, I'll lift you up. Yeah. And he was literally chucking people left, right, and front over his shoulder. And obviously getting people around him to help, just send them up crowd surfing. The embarrassing thing for me was, he's looked at me. Now, I don't want to sound arrogant when I say this. My figure doesn't show my full weight, I don't think. Don't correct me. Don't make me feel bad. And he assumed that I was a lot lighter than I actually am, because when he went to go lift me up, it was a very slow process of trying to get me over his shoulder and onto the crowd. I slipped through his hands, and we almost fell forward.
Oh,
I said to him, "Fucking playing out. Let's try that again." And yeah, we did eventually. And I put my hand on other people's shoulders as well to get myself over. I do feel bad when I do it sometimes, purely because I don't want to be ruining everybody else's fun. But then it happens to me all the time as well. If you're down the front, you need to expect that someone's boot is going to come in the back of your head, or someone's going to land on top of you and go over you.
That's it. That they don't like it when you crowd surf the stewards don't like it at all, because it's a safety issue, because people are going to get booted in the face. So they don't like it. So bear that in mind if you're planning that.
The worst year was the download year as well, because all of a sudden you turn around and there'd be this massive boot in your face, but not only was it not just a boot, it was a muddy boot.
Oh,
no. You were trying to push it away, and then your hands were getting muddy, and it was just...
Oh my God, yeah. 2016 was that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
There's probably been a few like that.
I'm sure there has, yeah. Now, some people in the crowd really object to camera phones being used during performances. They will give you the evil eye if you try and take a photo or a video. And some will be verbal about it, and in some cases violent about it. Put your phone away, etc. Now, I do take videos and photographs because I want to remember my experience. I've paid a lot of money to come here and see these bands, and I want to remember it because I'm, a few pints in at this point. And if I like what I'm hearing, if I like what I'm seeing, I'll want to take a couple of pictures or a video. And if I'm videoing, I won't take more than a minute, because I know that, to be honest, I'll rarely watch it back, and I don't want to be stood there for ages with holding my phone up, taking a video. So I'll take about a minute at the most, and then put my phone away and enjoy the performance. But even that is too much for some people who aren't minding their own business and want to be in your business with your camera phone.
I don't get it. I mean, if you've got a decent memory, fine. I can understand why, again, for the excuses that we use, you want to remember it. You want to make sure you've got it on document for yourself to be able to relate back to it. But I mean, that's my only excuse. Like, I want to remember it for myself. I'm not putting it up on YouTube or onto Facebook or the other platforms to try and get likes and stuff. It's
even if you were, what's wrong with that?
True, very true. But I mean, end of the day, it's to remember the time you had, because like you just said, especially by the time the main headliner comes on, you're going to be fucking 10, 20 pints deep.
Yeah, easily.
And your memory's going to go. So, like, why wouldn't you want to take a few photos and videos? I don't see a problem with it. If someone, I mean, I do get it if someone stood there for actually ages with it in your, like, again, and all you can see, you can't see the stage, all you can see is that phone. Fine, but I mean, I wouldn't turn around to someone and say, "Oh, put your fucking phone away." They want to remember it too.
I've been a steward at the Arena in Manchester, and we used to get people coming in, and I have to say it was particularly older people who would bring in to the Arena their iPad. And I'm not talking a regular sized iPad, I'm talking about the massive iPad Pro 12.9 inch. Massive, it's like a computer monitor. And they would literally hold it up. And this is a particular memory I'm thinking of. I can't remember which band it was. But they were nearly at the front with both hands holding up an iPad. And it was a massive screen lighting up everything behind them. It was just the most bizarre thing you've ever seen. And yeah, I can understand people's problem with holding up an iPad and filming like that. That's just stupid. But a little phone, it's a little phone, a little tiny little phone for just 60 seconds whilst I just take a little video. Who can reasonably have a problem with that? Dave?
I agree. Like, I definitely take 2 or 3 photos of bands that I'm interested in and try and get a decent, like, 30-second video of something. If I know there's like a good solo or something coming up, I might just try and film that. But then you put your phone away and enjoy the show,
And to be honest, I don't. I have been in certain crowds where there's been big headliners on and people have filmed every song. But even then, I can understand because they're international headliners, and I wouldn't have a go at anybody for it. It's your phone. You do what you want with it. I'm not. If I'm watching you with your phone taking pictures and whatever, I'm not watching the gig, which is what I've come for. Everyone's got different opinions on it, but that's mine.
Some bands, it's not even worth trying. Like, I remember, I think it's the last time I headlined, and
Iron Maiden.
as soon as the first song, as soon as they came on to the first song, the whole crowd like surged forward, and you were literally like sardines. So if anyone was holding their phone up, they could have easily dropped it, and like it would have been lost to the sound of time.
yeah, never to be seen again.
You've got to be a bit cautious of when you decide to take pictures and videos, especially in a big crowd.
I'll only tend to hold it in front of my face as well. I won't.
I don't really like it when people are holding it, because then obviously that if they're holding it up to the sky, then obviously that covers it for more people. But if it's just in front of your face, then it's no different than the back of your head.
Yeah,
obstructing someone else's view behind you. So
there are considerate ways of doing it.
Admittedly, I for I think it was Black Peaks who were in the Avalanche stage last time. I had my phone in the air, trying to take a couple of recordings of a couple of songs for, again, like a minute, like you say. I mean, I got no hassle from it, but yeah, I'm guilty of doing what you've just said is a no-no.
To be honest, I think it must be a minority of people who are violently against it, because
there are actually some bands that what's the word, like
discourage,
like obviously not at Download because it's an outdoor festival, but some like gigs you go to, some bands will say no recording, and then I think then you have to be respectful of their wishes because they specifically said don't film anything.
Yeah, some concert gigs are like that as well, aren't they? You can't literally.
Yeah, especially if it's being filmed for a DVD or something. But then, if that's the case, then why would you need to film it? Because you can just buy the DVD and have it in good quality.
Yeah, that's very true. I always think that at Glastonbury, why are people using their phone when it's being professionally filmed by professionals. Now, if you're in the middle of a crowd and you're enjoying the gig and you need the toilet, what options have you got?
So when Korn played in 2016, there was a group of people in front of me, and I could overhear them, and they said, "Oh, I'm busted for the loo." And I thought, fuck, the band's about to come on. You're going to have to hold that. No. This young lady decided that because she was wearing a poncho, all she had to do was squat down and just pee right there and then. And
not into anything.
No. It went straight into it because the ground was soaking wet. It was mud anyway, and she just pissed right on the floor. And part of me was like, "You dirty get!" But I have to admit, I was quite jealous because if I needed a pee, yeah, you've got to either stick it in a bowl or a cup, leave it there, or you've got to wade through every single person that's in your way to go to the loo.
Oh my God! Well, this is it. You know, do you? It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if you've got a an empty pint pot with you, a plastic one, you could potentially. How close are you to other people? Do you mind other people seeing your private parts as you piss? Do you mind splashing other people with it? What are you going to do with it once you've filled it? And as we know, occasionally, well, I know that they do go flying onto the stage occasionally, full of piss, and across the crowd. That is what you're seeing when you see those flying pint pots. It's not water. It's not beer. Or it was beer, maybe, and it's now been transformed into piss.
I've naively always thought it was beer or water because that's something that I've done. I've chucked a cup of water across the crowd, and actually a lot of people thanked me for it because it was quite warm in 2018. But
why did you throw water?
I took a sip. And I thought, right, if I take a sip, then everybody else might get a little. They might want it as well, and nobody else around me wanted it. So I threw it up in the air, and someone's gone, "Oh, who was that?" And I went, stuck my head. It was just and they went, grabbed by the shoulder and went, "Thank you. That was really refreshing." So no problem. And they said, "It wasn't piss, was it?" I said, "Was it warm?" "No, it was really cold." I said, "Well, there you go."
There you go. So the awful thing is, if you do get covered in piss at a gig, there is nothing you can do about it because it's happened. I mean, if you, you can sort of look out for those flying cups of piss, but do you want to spend your time doing that, or do you want to watch the gig? This is the danger of being in a crowd like that, particularly at Download. It doesn't happen so much at concerts. But outdoor festivals, you do see a lot of flying piss.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're in a good spot in the crowd, and you need to catch up with your mates, or you're looking for your mates, but you've got a really good spot, do you leave that spot and go and look for them, or do you just let them come and find you and ignore them?
Honestly, fuck them.
Fuck them.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm quite when I go to Download, I'm quite selfish. Like they said earlier, I plan out who I'm going to see, when I'm going to see them, and make sure I've got a good spot, and I will stay there. If one of you were to text me saying, "Oh, I'm over here," and says, "Well, I'm over here. Come and find me."
Yeah,
it's actually quite good if you're with other people to kind of compare notes with which bands you're going to see, and then you can be like, "Oh, we've both seen this band at 3:00 or something. Let's meet beforehand, like half an hour before or whatever, and at least you can be together."
Because some people don't want to be on their own at a festival, and that's understandable. They want to be with their friends the whole time, which probably means you're not going to see as much of what you wanted to see or would have wanted to see as music than you would have done, because you've got to consider everybody's thoughts. But if you're okay with walking around the place on your own, you probably see a lot more. That's your philosophy, isn't it?
That's mine, definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong. You stood with your friends watching a band. It can be more enjoyable than doing it by yourself. but I wouldn't. I'm in a selfish sense. I wouldn't want to miss a band that I really, really wanted to see. And if that meant having to leave the crowd to then go back to my spot, I still wouldn't do it. Like Dave said, you'd plan ahead with who you wanted to see, and if you end up wanting to see the same band as a friend as your mates, say, right, let's meet here half an hour beforehand, and we'll walk in together.
It's also quite hard when if you're on the phone to someone, you're like, oh, I've got my hand in the air, come find me. It's like, oh, everyone else got their hand in the air.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's quite tricky to it's like a needle in a haystack, isn't it? It's tricky to find anybody at a big crowd like that, because everyone's dressed in black, everyone looks the same, you know. Now, in crowds at Download, now there's a phenomenon. This isn't just at Download, this is at metal gigs, rock gigs, something that happens that's called a circle pit.
They are very fun.
Now, I've never done this. I've never been brave enough to get anywhere near this. What happens in this?
Circle pits aren't too bad. You run in the same direction as everybody else, and it looks really cool on TV and that. Just again, you got like about 50 people just running in a bloody circle. It sounds so silly, but it looks really cool, and it is a lot of fun. There's not as much bashing about and knocking about as you would in a mosh pit.
What's the circle pit for? Why do they do it?
It's fun.
Normally the bands that initiate it, the singer will like do a little circle motion with his hand, and then everyone will like push back and make a big gap in the crowd.
Is it to release all the energy that they've got from the music?
I'd say so. I'm absolutely knackered every time I do it.
So it's just running.
Pretty much in a circle. It sounds so silly, but yeah, that's pretty much exactly what it is. You're running in a circle to the music. And actually, I've always noticed it's always anti-clockwise.
Really?
I've never been in a clockwise circle pit.
Isn't that funny? I wonder why that is.
Northern Hemisphere, maybe?
I've got a bit of a pro tip for circle pits, actually.
Oh, go on.
Especially on the main stage, if you do find yourself like further back than you want to be, and you want to get to the front more, it's a good idea to seek out circle pits, and then normally like they spread out, and then the song finishes, and then as soon as the song starts again, everyone jumps in and starts doing the circle. So before that happens, in between the songs, if you find yourself at the back of a circle pit, run to the front of a circle pit, and then the circle pit's behind you, and you're close to the stage.
Hey.
It's a bit of a, you have to be a bit cautious, because the song could start up before you realise, and then you're stuck in the middle with hundreds of people running at you.
Wow.
But, if you're smart enough, it works quite well.
Now, you've mentioned other kinds of pit.
Yeah, so your traditional pit...
Your armpit.
Armpit, knee pit. No, mosh pit. It's just generally bumping into people and trying to... I think it's a nice little stress reliever.
Really?
And getting any sort of pent-up aggression you've got, getting it out, and you're bumping into people, you're hitting other people, and it sounds really barbaric, but it's just a thing that happens at, again, metal gigs and rock gigs and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. The one you need to be aware of or wary of is what's called the Wall of Death.
What's that?
The Wall of Death. So with the circle pit, the lead singer of the band will initiate. Will split the crowd in two, and then the Wall of Death, literally you just run at the other side that's been split up, almost like imagine you're in a war, right? If you ever watched Vikings or Game of Thrones or anything like that, and they're all running towards each other, it's just like that. That's fun until you fall over and you get fucking hundreds of people behind you trampling on you until somebody sees you and picks you up, which has happened to me before.
But how does a group or a crowd decide what kind of pit is going to happen? I mean, does someone shout "Wall of Death" or whatever?
With a mosh pit, you've always got one absolute psychotic person who has got their eyes wide open with anger, aggression, and focus.
Is that you?
It's not me. No. And they just literally start pushing people just out. Like they've got the confidence to push people out and then just start a mosh pit.
When you're watching a band on the stage, inevitably, wherever you're watching them from, you're going to get people walking past you, very close to you. People walking through the crowd, either as a group or individually. I know it seems seemingly, no matter where you stand in the crowd, you'll always get people pushing past you. So there doesn't seem to be anything you can do to mitigate this. If you don't like being pushed past, I'd say it's tough, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I try and get through to people, again, if say I'm going to meet someone in the middle of the crowd, or I want to get towards a specific spot, but it's quite crowded, I'll always, as loudly and as politely as possible, shout, excuse me. And some people are like, yeah, cool, go through. Some people would sort of like stand their ground and say, you're not getting in front of me. Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things that if you've been to a gig before, it's going to happen. Yeah, you want to get the best view of the band, but so does everybody else. But everybody else some other people have got that confidence just to try and just push their way to the front. And I mean, if you don't move too far, your experience isn't ruined unless the tallest person in the world decides to stand in front of you.
As seems to happen to me every gig. But I mean, I'm already quite tall. I'm 5'11". I'm 6 foot in a pair of boots. But still, the tallest man in the world, will come and find me.
Yeah, I'm the same. It happened. When I went and saw Behemoth in 2018. Now, obviously, my fiance is a lot shorter than me, but where we were stood at one point when the support was on, and we really sort of went, "Oh God, please don't let them stand there the entire gig." During the support, we had someone walk in front of us, and I just went, "For fuck's sake!" Now that's how I felt, being again same as 5'11", 6 foot in a pair of boots. I mean, my fiance is about 5'4", and it's for those sort of people that I really do feel sorry for, because I mean, they only need someone as tall as us to be in front of them, and they can't see. But obviously, you and I, we have someone that's like 6'4", and they're towering over everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you are trying to get nearer the front as well, I think it's probably a better idea to get closer on the sort of outskirts of the crowd, and then work your way in lengthways, rather than try and cut through people like front to back, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because
it's a lot easier to walk through like lines of people than it is to walk through them when they're shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. And some people like to sit in the crowd, don't they?
Yeah, I've noticed people all up and down the hill on the main stage. They'll literally pull up a pew of grass and just sit there for an hour and wait for the band to come on.
Or a camping chair.
I'd hate to imagine seeing a camping chair in the front section of the main stage, purely because that's just really inconsiderate. But up the hill, yeah, obviously I've done this before. Like you take your camping chair in, you sit, and you can sit there all day.
Especially if you're a bit older. If you're a bit older, you might want to take a camping chair, because I mean, I hate to stereotype, but it doesn't tend to be older people who are crowd surfing.
Well, I mean, even last time that we went to download, I mean, I ducked out early on the Sunday because my feet were killing me. So again, imagine someone that again has got about 20 years on me. They're going to want to take a chair, and so then the feet's not hurting, the back's not hurting because you stood up. Especially if you're camping in a really shitty tent and on a really crappy bed.
Yeah,
your back's going to be killing you anyway. So again, having to be stood up for about 12 hours watching bands, yeah, it's going to get painful.
Yeah, so it's probably a good idea to take a camping chair and sit a little bit further back and a bit, because you don't want to get caught up in all of the melee with people doing, mosh pits and circle pits and wall of death. That's you with your camping chair sat in the middle of it all. You don't want that.
I'd like to think actually some people use their common sense and not take their chairs down to the front section. But I mean, I think I have seen some people with their camping chairs, but it's up against the barrier of the front section, like up the back of the front section, if that makes sense.
Up the back,
yes.
They've
got their chairs. That's the only place I think should allow chairs up that front section. But even then, plonk a chair up the hill. There's screens that you can see the band from, and you get a really good view up there.
Yeah, exactly.
This year also, or last year, should I say, they announced the bigger viewing stage as well. For I'm not sure if it's just people with disabilities, or if you can anyone can buy it just to get a better view. I'm not sure on that.
Yeah. So do you remember the 2019? They had that big old Pepsi tower. It was quite far back.
Oh, yes.
That had a good view of the stage. Yeah, that had a really good view of the stages. But for 2020, obviously for 2021 now, they announced they're going to basically put a big standing viewing platform on sort of, I think, stage left, where obviously if you pay £100, you can stand on this platform and watch a better view. I mean, I don't really think it's a good idea. For a number of reasons. I think we've spoken about this before, where it would be you're a target for a pint of piss, or it makes the viewing for people behind you. Obviously, people aren't going to stand right behind it. I'm not that silly, but even people that are behind it have then got to basically move and squash another section of the crowd just to be able to see what's going on, unless they put a screen on the back of the viewing platform.
There was something else that I wanted to mention. Just to finish this section off, which is flags and inflatables in the crowd. You will see a lot of these. Now, if it's something that you don't mind losing, then I would recommend, absolutely take it. You see all kinds of weird and wonderful inflatables, including sex dolls.
T-Rex, that's my favourite.
T-Rex, oh yes, yeah.
T-Rex, yeah. Every year.
Bananas, all kind of stuff. There's lots of weird, and sometimes it actually makes it onto the stage, and they'll kick it away or whatever. But that's always good fun. Everyone loves an inflatable.
There was every single year. If you're in a good position, you will see someone. Anyone will take a fucking 20-inch double-ended dildo and start waving it about in the crowd.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what? You mentioned flags. They're actually not permitted in the arena at Download.
Really? That's interesting to know.
Yep. It's more of a recent thing at the end of the previous decade that they stopped allowing them in. You can see videos of them being used, but the last, I think, 4 or 5 years, they've said absolutely no. Inflatables still happen. I would recommend bringing a couple of inflatables for Ailstorm. After seeing them at Bloodstock a few years ago, inflatables were a massive thing. Flags, no, there's no flags allowed in the arena at Download anymore. And
I can understand that, because you watch coverage on the BBC of Glastonbury, and it is just nothing but flags. To a ridiculous extent that you can barely see through the flags to what the cameras are pointing at. So I can understand.
Yeah, I don't like them. Again, it's when you look at the footage from Glastonbury, you can barely see the fucking stage. So I almost think, like, what's the point? Oh, I know what the point is. It's to say, look, my flag's on TV.
Yeah, I know. That's true. Oh, shut the door there. So
you don't see many like messages these days. I remember seeing videos back in the day on YouTube of people holding up signs to the bands, but you don't really see that much these days.
No, you're right. It used to be a thing, didn't it? Much more than more recently.
Yeah, like scribbling on a bit of cardboard or something.
Look at my boobies, etc. So don't forget you can ask us questions or give us your viewpoint by sending us a message on social media. Tell us your do's and don'ts about crowds. Tell us something that we've missed, or just give us your opinion. So just search for FestPod on the socials and tell us what you think.